So the good news of this year is the market seems to be getting better. I mean, since January, I've been doing a lot of mock interview practice with my clients across different levels of seniority. And one of the things which keeps on coming is the behavior-based interview questions. How so few people actually know the art of sharing their career stories, which lands an impact, at least initially. And then after some work, we get to the level where I get to hear some brilliant career examples and career story. So I thought, why not share some of the most common mistakes people make during their interviews and sharing of career stories, especially if you're doing behavior-based interviews in any of the organizations, because that makes a lot of impact. And by sharing these mistakes, I hope to invite you to just record yourself and see, are you making any of these mistakes yourself? Hi, my name is Shiv Faujdar. I am a Singapore-based job search strategist and career coach and a former corporate recruiter. I'm also a LinkedIn top voice, so please do follow me there. And I have this YouTube channel, so please do subscribe to the channel. We share 2 videos every week. On Tuesdays are short nano tips for you to start implementing immediately, less than 2 minutes. And on Thursdays is a deep dive. So the first thing is basically I want to talk about setting the overall structure of how to answer these questions. And look, we have a deep dive video on that where I've broken down the whole CAR method to do it. But in essence, you need to have 3 parts to that question. So if somebody says, tell me about a time when, give me an example, tell me when you handled this, you typically start with setting the context. What was happening, where you were placed, what was the organization going through, and what was your task or challenge, and what would happen if you didn't achieve it. Then you talk about actions. What specifically did you do, not in terms of what just ended up happening. And the last one is result, hopefully the quantified metrics of how did you make an impact in the overall scheme of things. So now that you have a very quick lowdown of how to structure these questions, let me walk you through the top mistakes people make while answering them. Number 1, which I see majority of the people making, is spending too much time in setting the context. Look, context is what was happening in the organization, where you were. You had no role to play. This is not what somebody assesses you. Context helps for them to understand what was happening, and if that situation is similar to what they're going through, it's bingo. But otherwise, the whole role of context is to give them a bit more idea of what was involved. You don't have to make your entire answer around the context. 30% is what you need to be gunning for in terms of setting the context, including why was it important for you to get that task or challenge sorted. The second one is not being specific. So many people talk about, oh, I want to share about a project where I was involved in multiple priorities or multiple sub-projects. It could be anything. You need to specify, you need to set the whole stage. The more specific you are. Imagine if you and your best friend prepared for these questions together and you both worked at the same organization. Your best friend should not be able to copy any part of your answer because it's just so specific to you. So specificity is the number 1 criteria to make you different from everyone else. Number 3 is around making your action very superficial. I mean, they give you something very generic, something which is very commonsensical without adding any substance to it. Yesterday, I was doing a practice with someone and I was questioning them, how did you deal with a difficult stakeholder? And in their action, the person just ended up saying, I decided to do daily calls with this person, and over time, the person warmed up to me. Now, it's not telling me anything about what happened. How did you manage to even agree to have daily conversations? What did you do in those conversations to make this person warm up to you? The action bit of your answer is the main thing which the interviewer uses to assess you. So make sure that that is well thought through and impactful. Again, going on to the action bit, there are people who answer all their action bit in we. Now, I am not assessing your entire team. Maybe your entire team was a rock star and you were just a bystander. How do I know? Now, of course, everybody succeeds because they worked in teams and you want to show a bit of team playing. So my advice to people is you could have one or two sentences which begin with we. We decided to tackle this situation by this. We then decided to create this strategy. My role specifically was to handle these three things. I was responsible for this. This is how I did it. I was responsible for this. So you need to tell them exactly what you did for us to get a better picture of how to assess you. The fourth one is no quantification. It was a big project. It was extremely important. Give me quantifications for me to understand the magnitude. Big project for you could be 2 million, 200 million, 2 billion. Big project for me could be 200,000. So there's a lot of discrepancy. When you add quantification, you bring some objectivity to your answers. It very clearly helps me to see what was the scale of the problem, the business, the budget, the size, the revenue, like everything else becomes much more easy for the interviewer to understand. The next one is not so much about the answer, but about the memorization of it. Do not, and I repeat, do not memorize your career stories in prose, because if you slip up one word, everything goes out. And I've seen this in action so many times. Always write bullet points where you're writing different keywords specifically for the action you did and the result. The context can change based on what the question is. Remember, one career story can show multiple skills and multiple situational handling. So don't get very fixated on that context bit. You switch it up a bit and you've got an amazing career story, which you can use in 2-3 different parameters. The next mistake is not preparing for follow-ups. Most brilliant organizations will ask you a follow-up question. Oh, how did you decide to do this? What was the main challenge? If you could go back in time, how would you handle this situation differently? People think they can just say their career story and that's it. No, they want to understand the different bits. They want to poke holes to see how much your involvement really was. So make sure you've got good follow-up career stories prepared as well. You've thought through some of those questions. It also shows authenticity and how much you were really involved in that particular situation. The next one is skipping the result altogether. And I've been left as an interviewer sitting and wondering what actually happened. Did this project succeed? Did you finally manage to convince the stakeholder? Were you able to deliver the outcome you were supposed to? Please don't leave us hanging. Please, please, please. And if you could quantify your result, that's a big bonus. The next mistake is not having enough stories. Look, most people can easily think of 3 or 4 career stories, but if you're interviewing for behavior-based interviews, for most consulting companies, tech organizations, you need to have somewhere around 12 to 15 of these. And if you are going for other industries, then about 8 to 10, depending on your seniority level. So having different career stories is really important. It's not only about how amazing that one story is. If there's one skill they're very particular about, say, negotiation, and they've asked this in one interview, and they ask you in second and third interview, and you just have one story to talk about negotiation, it tells me you've got some experience, but not enough breadth of experience. So for the most critical skills for that particular role, have at least 2 to 3 different stories prepared. And the last one, it may come as a surprise to some, but your last mistake, which can make your career stories very boring, is if you're missing the spice in delivery, if your voice is in a monotone, if you're not adding why was it important for you to get a particular thing done, then it's very difficult for them to remember your career stories, especially if you're meeting 4 or 5 other candidates asking similar questions. Things can start getting very fuzzy. So your delivery is very important. And if you could use your voice, the pace, the way you're communicating to create an impact, then voila, they are going to be all mesmerized by you. So I hope that these mistakes can give you an idea on how you can improve your career stories and make an impact in your next interview. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel, and I hope to continue bringing great content in job search and career growth for you. Please do type in comments which mistake do you see yourself making all the time, and if you have any burning questions around career growth and job search, please do not forget to type in comments as well. Till next week, bye bye.